compare duality and non-duality philosophically and spiritually.
Okay. Well, I've covered some of the aspects, but I'll try to pull it together. And I'm cheating 100% because I'm using a dualistic language. Philosophically, duality means more than one. Multiplicity, relationships. So I call it the relative reality. It's not a put down, it's a technical description of the fact there are relationships relative. Nothing is relative without more than one. And it is known, it is the world we experience. It is temporary, it is always changing. There is nothing even that is ongoing. It's always in a state of flux. Okay. And so that is how and this is manifested in philosophical discussions. They talk about the duality of good and evil and what have you. We can also talk about it theologically, that I have an immortal soul separate from God. Okay, so that's my understanding of the relative reality and what I mean by it. Then I had to give a title to non-duality. I call it the absolute. In Indian Vedanta, they call it Brahman. In Kabbalah, they call it Ein. Not Ein Sof, that's the second stage, and Ein Sof Sur is the third. But okay, so they have these states, but these are labels. Now, what do we mean by the absolute or Brahman? Well, the first thing is, and this is the conundrum, it is not knowable by the cognitive mind. We can only know it by direct experience, and that's based on faith in the reports we have had. And the other thing, we say it is not changing. That's a clever way of saying it's permanent, but that's against the rules. Give a positive attribute, so you get tricky, but it's an important point, and it's a substratum, and there is no creator God. There's this great mystery that first. I use the word emanation for emanated the world. In Hinduism, there's often the concept of Shiva Shakti doing the dance. And in the Japanese, Chinese tradition, they talk about the yin yang dance of creation. But these are all metaphors, which is the trickiest part about understanding non-duality. You have this great mystery. How come there's a relative world? And in Hinduism, they call it Maya. Why is this an emanation? This is the trickiest point. I try in each of my chapters to identify that point, and it's really a point of faith. Like in Kabbalah, the emanation is the tree of life, 10 Sephirot, and that Keter. Anyway, all of this is there. But it's and this now raises another point. You cannot know this by the cognitive mind. It's important to study and know things. Perhaps this discussion will help point people in that direction. But in the end, you have to go beyond the cognitive mind. I think Abraham Maslow tried to do this when he talked about transpersonal psychology. He was heading in that direction. He didn't go all the way. He unfortunately died at age 60, and that was very unfortunate. I think he would have continued. What about this direct experience? I want to clarify something about that. Many Christian and Jewish and Islamic prophets or saints experience the presence of God, but they experience God separate from themselves. Like Moses experienced the voice of God through the burning bush, or at the top of Mount Sinai, where God spoke to him. Okay, that's revelation. It's a religious experience, but it's a dualistic religious experience of you are separate from the divine. On the other hand, there's the religious experience of what I call absorption or merging, where our higher self, our higher consciousness finally gets to the point where it merges with the absolute. In the Vedantic tradition, they speak of this metaphorically, that our true nature, the higher self, the Atman, merges with the absolute Brahman. And the highest teaching is Brahman equals Atman. They are the same. Now we're getting into some deeper theology. Maybe someday we'll have a talk just about Vedanta but open that up. But I hope, and so there are two types of experience: God separate from you, or the absolute concept. You have a merging experience. It raises a very difficult experience question. If there's no you in that experience, see, this is the how can you report it? But that's another discussion in my book, and I try to lay that out.
Yeah, I think you have tried to elaborate the most delicate part of this consciousness, because it's very tricky. And thanks for all this sincere effort you have made for people like me and others who are interested in this field. Thank you for doing that.